Yes, you are now listening to the sound. Sports Reports is ordered. And tonight, it's that time of year. The leaves are turning green. The trees are sprouting. The time has changed. Baseball is back. And of course, we got some more March Madness inventory to get to. And then we're going to play a little game called What Would It Take for You to Believe That Sports Are Real? And I don't know if y'all noticed, but I've been trying to practice on my radio voice. I'm saying this is the new Get Down. But I got with me the even killed, B.A. Born, Jersey's own, dedicated veteran, dedicated father. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
He is Raphael Brett, also known as the one and only Mr. Logical. And then, of course, I am your resident statistician. So unorthodox, going left so much that you thought I was Southpaw. Speaking of Southpaw, we got Raleigh and Pitbull this weekend, but boxing ain't doing a good job advertising again. But anyway, welcome to Sports Reports is Ordered. Like, subscribe, review, send us emails, send us Instagram, send us reels, send us all. Let us know where we're getting it wrong. Let us know where we're getting it right. But we're going to start the show off, of course, with the one and only Get It Off My Chest.
Woo. All right, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. Keep it a bean this time. The NFL. Listen, don't piss my pocket and tell me it's raining. Y'all need to stop with this. These rules are in place for player safety. It's a contact sport. You're not going to be able to legislate everything out of it. At a certain point, you're just breaking it. You're fixing it till it breaks. The new kickoff rule, terrible. The hip drop tackle. I don't know how else these guys are going to be able to tackle, or how are you going to be able to regulate it? Because right now, this summer, and maybe like in Texas and Florida, they probably got summer camps already for football. They're teaching tackling drills to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids, which is wrap and roll. Get your hands in, roll like an alligator. Get them down to the ground. Yes, the hip drop, the negative results are bad. But if you think about, you can't hit guys in the head. I remember Hines Ward said, listen, I'd rather you hit me in my head than my knee. We saw Rob Gronkowski run that seam route, get his knee tore up. Maybe because Rob Gronkowski is a big dude and you want to hit him low anyway. But that safety probably could have taken a shot at his head and with a big hit or maybe a hit to the chest, but he probably would have got flagged and or fined. So you go low. So now it's like you're only going to give defensive players one target. Either hit him in the back and push him out of bounds, or hit him in the knees. Because if you hit him from the side, your momentum is going to swing you around to their legs. So if your momentum swings you around, and it just doesn't seem like a feasible way to tackle, or for the players to even protect the fellow players. Like, yo, how am I going to tackle you safely? You got rid of the horse collar, which is like, it was a deliberate, you're yanking the guy back. But there's only so much you can really do for a player. And as far as a defensive player, like I said, you're only giving him a few more targets to hit now. Like it's just maybe I can hit him in the chest or his ribs on the tackle with my shoulder pads, or maybe I can go and hit him in the knee because I can't wrap. So it's just going to be just all shoulders and shoulder pads and helmets to legs, knees, thighs. It's like no one's going to wrap anything up. So like you're going to put guys in just a better position, whereas a guy could wrap up with his arms and put you to the ground. I'm not saying every tackle is a hip drop tackle and guys can't figure it out because, they've all adjusted all the safeties. I've seen plenty of games where guys are throwing into triple coverage in a cover 3, and it's like that safety could come take the wide receiver's head off, but he doesn't. Or they can get that cheap shot on the quarterback, but they don't. So guys have learned restraint. But it's only so many rules you can change. And we talked about in our pre-meeting, the DK Metcalf chase down to Buda Baker would have been a hip drop tackle penalty on DK Metcalf. Now think about how much effort went into that play for an offensive player to chase this guy down, and he would have been flagged on that tackle. Instead of praised like he should have been for effort, he would have been flagged for it.
Well, the first thing that I think about is Tony Pollard against San Francisco in that playoff game. That was just a sad moment, but unfortunately, that's football. Like, injuries are a part of the game. You can't legislate it out the game. The second thing I thought about was Mike Mitchell of the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years ago. He was talking about, well, now I'm going to get hurt trying to protect the offensive player. So like, what are we trying to accomplish here? I'm surprised, though. Let me back up. I'm surprised that you feel the way that you do about the kickoff rule. Like, I know it's like in line with the old XFL kickoff rule and everything. So
I just didn't think the kickoff needed to be revamped. Like, they talk about the concussions and everything else. Well, because the kickoff and the punt, because I think the punt is probably just as dangerous because guys are running the sprint. Maybe granted, it's only a couple of guys, but it's just as dangerous, just as many hits. I just don't understand how you're going to say it's about player safety, but yet you're lobbying for an 18th game on a season.
I just want the regular kickoff back. I don't want to be the old guy. I want my original kickoff back because if you look at the numbers, concussions didn't go up or down really. Like, it stayed around the same median since the new kickoff rules have been adopted, even though most of the kickoffs go out of the end zone anyway, which is another thing that I hate is when the dude doesn't even catch the ball and just lets it fall on the ground. But 22%
of kickoffs got returned last year.
Yeah, but when you look at the numbers, it didn't make a huge dent as far as hypothetical numbers. It wasn't as if concussions were at 27% and this kickoff rule dropped it to 18. So I just don't know what we're trying to accomplish outside of we're just changing rules because
you're literally spoiling entertainment. You're interjecting more referees. Like I said, we're going to get into our rig conversation later. You're only just ramping up. At some point, someone's going to have to sit down. Like I say, you need an old head in the room just to sit in the corner, just like, nah, man, that's stupid. And this is why it's stupid. Because everyone's sitting around the table.
Welcome to my
they're looking at the data. But if you think about it, 22% of kickoffs got returned. So that means 78% of the time, guys are just jogging down the field. You got rid of the wedge because that was inherently dangerous. That was a deliberate phalanx 300 Leonidas type of system where guys interlocked arms and then another group of guys ran into him like, I'm still a line from Rich Eisen. He's like Braveheart. Like that scene in Braveheart. That doesn't happen now. And realistically, it doesn't happen often because guys need to stay in their lanes. Guys don't get together because if you get together, that's how Devin Hester gets outside of you. Mm-hmm. So guys are running straight up. So it's not like there is one guy catching the kickoff and he's getting creamed because the ball is so high in the air by the time that's not happening. It's just you take the data and you make it fit what you want to be changed.
Correct. But yeah, I agree with that. So get it off my chest. It's March Madness. And one thing that I hate is when people say, keep that same energy. But unfortunately, I'm in a position where I have to say, keep that same energy. So when we talk about college football playoff expansion, everybody talks about the valuation of the regular season and how the games don't matter anymore. But when I look at college basketball, I done watched these conferences play anywhere from 16 to 20 conference games, have a conference tournament, and then a team like, say, NC State gets hot for 4 or 5 days, wins the ACC tournament, and they get in the tournament with the automatic bid versus a team that went, 28-6, but they were from a smaller conference or whatever, like Indiana State that I'm watching
Right.
right now, for example. So now everybody's banging on the Mountain West because here's another year. Here's only San Diego State in the Sweet 16 again. So they got 6 bids, and everybody's saying, see, they didn't deserve 6 bids. The ACC only got 4 and should have got potentially 6 with Pitt and Wake Forest. The Big East only got 3. All 3 are in the Sweet 16. So that shows that St. John's, Providence, and Seton Hall should have probably been in. And then I go, because the regular season matters. If you wanted Wake Forest in the tournament, nobody told them to use the loop to Utah. And then they turned around and lost to Utah in the NIT the other day too. So they lost to them twice. I'm sorry, Georgia. They lost to Georgia twice. Nobody told them to lose to Utah. Nobody told them to lose to LSU. Nobody told Pitt to lose to Missouri. Nobody told St. John's to lose to Michigan and Boston College. Nobody told Seton Hall to lose to Iowa, USC, and Rutgers. So the regular season, make it matter. That's all we're asking for. The NCAA tournament, it shouldn't be about what you did in the last week. It should be about your whole collective body of work. I'm going to give Providence a pass because their best player got hurt in January, but they still were good enough to make the tournament. They just didn't. Now, the ACC did, for their credit, they did go 9-3 against the Big 12 this year. And look at the Big 12 with a losing record in the NCAA tournament right now. But it's not about the conferences all the time. Sometimes some conferences are better at the top. Some are better depth-wise, which the Big 12 is. But if you look at it, we still got Houston and Iowa State 1 and 2 seed in the Sweet 16. So instead of trying to make a narrative, just enjoy basketball.
What do you mean enjoy? No one's doing that, man.
Keep that same energy. That's all. But speaking of the NCAA tournament.
Yes, I heard some other crazy stuff about that. Like some coach, I forgot who it was, some mid-majors shouldn't get in on an automatic bid because they can't compete.
Ask Auburn. Ask Auburn if they can compete.
I mean, Grand Canyon won a game, and they're not even the mid. They won. They beat St. Mary's.
I don't even know if Grand Canyon's a mid-major. They might be like what they call a low major. They're in the WAC.
Then you got who else won?
You had Duquesne beat BYU.
Duquesne beat BYU.
In the mighty Big 12.
Oakland.
And Oakland almost did it again.
We had another 13 seed. Yale. We talked about them. So the joy, because I look at it like this: if you feel that they don't belong, and you get matched up with them, then just beat them.
Right. That's an easier path for you.
It's like I'd rather play a game where I can go 9 deep in my bench and get my starters out because I'm up 19 with 4 minutes to go, or I'm up 25.
You know what it is, right? Money, 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 money. That's all it is.
Get involved. Make the tournament, get you some money.
But when I think about this, what you just said, I look at Florida Atlantic, for example. They made the Final Four last year, lost to San Diego State, but also 2 of their conference mates played in the final of the NIT, and then another one of their teams in their conference won the CBI tournament. I mean, nobody cares about the CBI, but the point being, they had 3 teams from their conference in the title game of 2 different tournaments, and they made the Final Four. So to say that the mid-majors can't compete is asinine when I saw Butler make 2 straight national titles. I saw Loyola Chicago make the Final Four. I saw Wichita State make the Final Four. I saw George Mason make the Final Four. So don't tell me that they can't. San Diego State played for the national title last year. So don't tell
And
me
we
that they
see
can't compete.
we've seen plenty of 2 seeds lose to 7 seeds in the second round. So it's not an exact science. It's set up the way it is. Like just talk about with the NFL. You can't fix it until it breaks all the time. Some things are just in place, and there will be anomalies. There's gonna be a certain situation where a team like Auburn next year might go 25-12 and they'll get in. Or they go 19-17, they don't get in. Well, don't lose 17 games. If they win their conference and they beat another team that's won 27-28 games, they deserve to be in. Even a team that they beat, if we think about it sometimes, like you had a team like Northwestern was 21-11, because I remember for years the adage was 20 wins and you're essentially in if you're one of these major schools. Got Michigan State got it. They had 19-14, but they got in. So yeah, they can get in and make some damage, do some damage. But in the same sense, it's like give these other schools an opportunity. Texas at 20-12, but St. Peter's, you win your conference tournament, you get in. Yeah, they're 19-13, but and they had their hot week. They deserve a chance to get in. These other schools, when the scoreboard is already slanted in your favor, don't be mad that somebody else had to work a little harder, achieve that goal, and they got it. Because, like I said, Michigan State, 19-14. Your rating is good enough. We'll get you in based off these quality wins. Whereas Indiana State, listen, you got to win your conference tournament. Well, they didn't. Drake did, but Drake got in because of that. So, like, if you're going to set up a roadblock for me to get in and I overcome that, then I deserve the reward once I get over that. Because everybody else is getting stuff handed to them.
And what's crazy is after the craziness that was last season, we only have one double-digit seed in the Sweet 16 this year, the North Carolina State Wolfpack. We only have one other team that is seeded lower than 5, which is a 6 seed. So, you got what you wanted. You didn't want the Cinderella last year. You didn't want the small school, and now we don't have it. NC State is not a Cinderella. They might be a dark horse. They're not a Cinderella.
They're just hot.
But on a side note, real quick, of course, we got the matchup of the national title game rematch coming up between San Diego State and UConn. It'll probably look about the same as last year did. But on another note, real quick, I wanted to touch on. So you remember back when Odell Beckham played for the Giants and they took that picture on the boat and everybody was talking about how distracted they were, how they were losing games and they never recovered from that. So like when teams lose and players move on or declare for the draft or do these things, people say, well, their heart wasn't into it. They were distracted. Well, since this tournament has started, we saw Florida Atlantic lose on Friday in their first round game to Northwestern, and their head coach is the coach at Michigan 3 days later. We saw Washington State lose on Saturday to Iowa State, and their coach is the coach at Stanford a day later. We saw James Madison get their backs blown out P. Diddy style, on Sunday, on Sunday against Duke. And their head coach left for Vanderbilt the next day. So did these coaches let the kids down? Why? I'm not saying they did, but why is that not more of a discussion they obviously did not. I don't think James Madison's coach got a call 11 o'clock that night and his agent said, I got Vanderbilt on the other line. What do you say? You know what I'm saying? This conversation probably happened 3 weeks ago.
That conversation happened as soon as it got warm and they were able to play a nice round of golf.
Yeah. And
18 holes of golf, a lot of action. happens there.
Don't get
Because
me
there's
wrong.
yeah, because you can't set up a contract, you can't understand stipulations, you can't do an interview
Right.
like a proper interview because you got to prepare for that interview. Because if I'm a Division One coach at one school and it's another opening and they want to interview me, I need some time to figure out where you are geographically, like what kind of environment it is, what I want to do there. Like, is it good for my family? Like, you got to like factor all this in before you even do the interview. So for you to have the job fully accepted in less than
Right.
72
Right.
hours is like, how long were you doing this research? How many times did they reach out to you?
That's Lincoln Riley status,
He
and
was on a private jet. The game ended.
well, like with James Madison in particular, like their game ended probably 8 o'clock in the Eastern time zone, maybe 9 o'clock. I got the notification about their coach leaving at like 10:30. You know what I mean? So like it was obviously in place already, and nobody blinks an eye or bats an eye. But anyway, back to the tournament. The Big East got 3 teams in. All 3 made the Sweet 16. The ACC got 5 in, and Virginia messed it up, but we
Yeah.
still got Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, and NC State in the tournament. Shout out to Colorado. I told everybody pre-tournament about Kai Simpson. He came through just like I thought he would. Marquette and Tyler Kolek were just better. They were just better. And I know there were a couple of games that you wanted to talk about that stood out to you.
I watched the like the second half of GCU versus Alabama,
I
and
just thought they were going to brawl, man.
it was a very scrappy game. It was a very good game. GCU was up, and then Alabama just got like GCU just had a couple mistakes that were just odd. Like they were up 5. Bama came down, excuse me, scored a 2. Then a guy got fouled. They made one free throw. The guy missed the second free throw, I believe. GCU gets the rebound, and the guy stumbles with the ball, and Alabama gets the ball back. Like just gets the steal off a rebound. Like he gets the rebound, turns, dribbles it off his leg or something. Alabama gets the ball back, score and 1, and now they're up 3. All in like a matter of like a couple of like just bad possessions. So it just was funny to watch that. But I really thought they were gonna pull it out because I do like the Cinderella. I know you talked about like not really liking it because you don't think it's like they're not gonna get that far.
Well, no,
Or
I like the Cinderella. I was saying that America only
America,
wants the Cinderella to get to a certain point.
the first round and then losing around the 32.
Yeah, like
Uh,
they don't want an Elite Eight with the mid major in it. They don't want a final unless it's Gonzaga, or St. Mary, somebody that they recognize on that level. But
yeah,
they wouldn't want to see Grand Canyon in the Final Four.
Creighton and Oregon. That game came down to a couple of like the coach for Oregon basically stopped coaching in the second half and just had his best scorer and the big man be the offense.
Yeah, Quiznard and Fale
Dante.
Dante. Yeah,
Yeah. So basically it was, get it off the rim or catch this lob. I'm shooting everything. And he was taking good shots, but you can tell that energy was getting lower and lower and lower. So then Creighton was, I think they were down 2, and then Oregon had a freshman inbound in the ball. And this is where coaching comes into play. Don't pass the ball to Dante. He's the worst free throw shooter on the floor. He was like
Oh, and
60%.
that coach definitely, Dana Altman, he definitely reacted.
He reacted to it, and I was like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that reaction because because the kid inbounding the ball is a freshman,
Right.
passing it to the big man. So he sees I messed up by getting to this guy. Dante sees the coach react that way and then goes to the line and 1-1, misses the front end. Creighton comes down, good shot, ties the game. But I saw in that huddle, the kid number 10, the freshman that passed the ball, it was, I don't know if it was like someone's consoling him or if he was like, it was a little friction in the huddle after the missed free throw and Creighton got the rebound. It was a timeout. So when they went back to the huddle, you could tell it was like a little ruckus. And then going to double overtime, Chris Nard he had no more legs.
Yeah.
He just was like, and they knew it. They were like, yo, you the guy that brought us here. Keep firing away. Maybe just out of happenstance and luck, and sure will is going to go in. But Creighton, you got to get a ball to the big man when he's rolling to the hoop. He's 7'1". It was so many times he did the pick and roll. He's rolling. I'm like, just throw it up there. But now they were kicking it out and shooting threes. It's like they were living by the three and dying by the three. And I get it. It was still a good game. But that was one thing. Like in this next game against Tennessee, if they don't take advantage of that aspect of their offense, then they're going to get run out of the building because it was so easy. And it just like they don't have a natural point guard. I think they have guys who are point guard size.
They had Nimhard and he transferred to Gonzaga. His brother plays for the Pacers. And so he went to Gonzaga and they're left with what they got. And I still had him. I got him in the title game against Carolina. So we'll see what happens. But Texas A&M and Houston was a crazy game as well because
I was just involved in some social engagements.
Yeah, Wade Taylor, the fourth, 5 of 26. 5 of 26. What we doing? What we doing? Jamal Shead fouled out for Houston. Sharp fouled out for Houston, but it was too late. But shout out to Anderson. I'm trying to think of his last name right now. Anderson Garcia, who off the bench averages 6 points a game, hit 8 threes on the season. Ball rolls out to him. He just steps right up as if he was supposed to and puts the game into the first overtime. And people with brackets everywhere started pissing down their leg.
I mean, that's the beauty part of the tournament. And I think we're going to get into the money and the coaches movement. Just one and done. That's why people love the NFL playoffs so much. That's why like the NBA playoffs kind of get like, I don't think they garner the same amount of attention because it's so long. Mm-hmm. Because the NBA regular season, you got Boston playing on a Tuesday at Atlanta, and then they got a game Thursday in Washington. So they're moving around. So it's like you kind of follow the excitement. But when it gets into the playoffs, the games slow down and not as exciting. The results are exciting because you wanted this guy to go on the next round. And this NCAA tournament, you got a guy who scored, Chris Nard, he scored 40 in the first game.
Yeah.
I think he finished this game with between 32 and 36, I believe. But him and Dante, the only two guys that scored in the second half until one guy got a putback layup late into before it went to overtime. Mm-hmm. So that level of excitement, making a name for yourself where you're going to be potentially, maybe someone's looking at you now. Maybe a G League spot opens up for you. Or maybe, like I said, transfer port opportunity. We talk about Grand Canyon in our pre-meeting. They probably had some transfers come in, but now maybe some of those guys have the opportunity to transfer out. Mm-hmm. And maybe someone who wants to transfer from a school like Marquette that might not be getting that much run. Like, these GCU guys, they had a nice little run last year.
Right. So March Madness is an opportunity for everyone, but I guess the coaches are the only ones taking advantage of it in the actual moment.
Yeah. That's just wisdom. That's just understanding like how to use your leverage. I think people find it odd when players, especially young players, exercise that versus coaches. I think that's because if you presented it to a coach, he would just flat out say, I mean, what do you expect me to do? Like, this opportunity of a lifetime. I've always wanted to coach here, yada, 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 yada. And that's kind of the end of the line of questions.
All right, so let's walk this out. We are in the Sweet 16. We got Thursday, Friday, and then you got your Elite 8 on Saturday, Sunday. with the Final Four the following Saturday, championship the Monday after that. So let's walk down this. We're gonna go in order, starting with the schedule. So starting with Thursday, we got Clemson and Arizona in the West. Who you got?
Let's see if I have them in my bracket still. I got Arizona.
Yeah, I got Arizona. The regional final, of course, is in LA. So we talked about that pre-tournament where if it ends up Arizona, North Carolina, the 1 seed is at a significant disadvantage in that scenario. All right. So then we got the national title game rematch. UConn, San Diego State. I'm assuming you got UConn.
I got UConn.
Yeah, I got UConn as well. I do think it might be closer than the experts think. I like this Jalen LeGee. I like him a lot. So, I think they can keep it semi-close, but I think UConn pulls away late. All right. Then you got North Carolina and Alabama.
I'm going to go UNC. I think the way that I think that their scoring ability in the front court and their guard play in North Carolina, and I think just like sometimes the legacy of a school kind of like propels you in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being a number 1 seed, yeah, I got North Carolina in that game as well.
Yeah, I got North Carolina as well, but don't let Bama get hot from 3. That's the key there. And then you got the 2 versus the 3 in the East. Winner will play UConn, Iowa State, or San Diego State. Iowa State against Illinois. What say you?
Got Illinois pulling it out.
Okay, look at us. Yeah. I got Illinois as well. All right, then let's take it to Friday. You got the dark horse. Don't you dare call them a Cinderella. NC State going up against Shaka Smart, who has this is weird. This is the first time Shaka has made it out of the first weekend since the year at VCU when he made the Final Four.
That's strange.
That is very strange.
To take a like a mid-major team like that at the time that far, but then get all these better job opportunities and better recruiting and better money.
It reminds me a lot of Tubby Smith. Like when Tubby Smith was at Tulsa, when he was at Georgia, like these no-name programs basketball-wise, like he was pulling upsets. He got to Kentucky, won the title with Pitino's players, and then after that, it just kind of declined very quickly. But so Marquette, NC State, who you got?
I got Marquette.
I'm taking the Wolf Pack. You know what I'm saying? I'm riding the DJ Burns train. I like Horn. I think Marquette, I think their time is up. Then we got Purdue and Gonzaga.
Well, I had Kansas, so I like the whipping that Purdue put on Utah State.
Whew, 39 points.
I think that just I think that gives like confidence to your team, and I think it puts the other team on notice. You put up 100 points and win by 39 points. I gotta assume you got the hot hand. I'm gonna just score Purdue.
I'm going with the Zags. They did play earlier this year. Purdue won by 12. But I think Gonzaga getting the look at them will help them this time around. Then you got Duke against Houston, probably the game of the Sweet 16.
I got Houston.
I got Houston as well. I just think defensively they're going to make life hard for Duke. McCain from Duke went off for 30 against James Madison, 6 for 8 from 3. I don't think he's going to get those looks against Houston. And then finally, Tennessee against Creighton.
Take Tennessee. I had Creighton losing to South Carolina in the second round anyway. So I'm going to take Tennessee to move on.
Yeah,
so Elite 8. Yeah, so my Elite 8 looks like Tennessee, Purdue, Marquette, Houston, UConn, Illinois, and USC, Arizona.
Yeah, so I got In my Elite Eight, I got UConn over Illinois, even though I do think so. I did pick North Carolina to beat UConn in the Final Four, but I do think that Illinois is equipped to beat UConn. Terrence Shannon can go off for 30 to 40 at any moment, make Stefan Castle beat you, Domask, in his triple double. Illinois has what it takes to beat UConn. I just don't think they're ready. I got UNC over Arizona, even though I am a little concerned that the game would be in LA. So, obviously Arizona. No, I mean North Carolina is a school that travels well enough, but obviously Arizona is going to have an advantage there. And if you're UConn and you do win that game, you play Arizona in the Final Four. The Final Four is in Phoenix. And then on the other side of the bracket, I got Gonzaga over NC State. And then I got Creighton upset in Houston.
So I got Houston beating Marquette. Then I got Tennessee beating Purdue. My Final Four is UConn, Arizona, Tennessee, Houston.
All right, there you go. So we'll see what happens. But now it's time to move on because it's that time of year where the air smells a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? The flowers are starting to bloom. You're starting to see bees and spiders and all our little friends. It's baseball season. So me and Mr. Logic, we're going to take y'all down this path. We're going to pick our division winners. We're going to pick our wild cards. We're going to tell you who wins the World Series. So go on and get us started.
Well, baseball is something that, we didn't really cover that much on the show. Try to get into it. It's been in the news recently for more nefarious reasons. But, I mean, it's pretty much going kind of chalk here. My division winners.
Okay.
I got the Dodgers, Reds, Braves.
Okay.
The wild card might come back to bite me because for some reason the Padres always seem to just come up short for some reason. It just seems like they spend the money, they get the free agent. But I got the Padres, Cubs, and Phillies in my wild card in the NL.
Okay.
Then for the AL division, the Yankees, Tigers, Mariners. Because the
Tigers, huh?
Yeah, I checked out a couple of podcasts. I read a couple of different articles. I'm like, you know what? It seems to be like the consensus in the people, the areas where I did my research. I'm like, maybe they're on to something. AL wild card, Orioles, Rangers, Astros. I can't have a team that won the World Series not make the playoffs. I know it's pretty common in baseball, especially with their playoff format, but I just feel like that I like the Orioles because like sometimes when a team is down for a while and they start to claw back, then they have that hot year, like that Kansas City Royals year, where it's like you have all these years of just kind of mediocrity, and you try to make a move here, you lose your big, you lose a guy in free agency, and then one year it all comes together. I think this is a year that they make the playoffs. And my dad's an Orioles fan, so I got to get him in there.
Welcome to the club, Pops. So who you got in the World Series?
I'm gonna go kind of boring, but exciting. Yankees, Dodgers. Just New York and LA. Just a gut feeling. I think this is the year. Baseball is back. When you get Ohtani and the Big Apple and the 6'8" Aaron Judge is probably gonna be AL MVP. Ohtani's probably gonna be NL MVP, maybe Mookie Betts. I don't know. I just think I know we got the Moneyball guy.
Oh, Billy Beane.
Billy B. Like that's cool, but like star power is raw power, and I think Dodgers Yankees World Series
Yeah, same people waiting on Yankees and Dodgers still waiting on LeBron and Kobe in the finals too.
It's
Uh,
gotta happen. We gotta have something. Something that it has to work out to where we get a Celtics Lakers NBA finals. We get something. We need something. So I'm gonna go ahead and go out on that ledge and say we getting
I
Dodgers,
will definitely watch.
Yankees.
If we get that World Series, I will definitely have
I'm
every
going to a
game
game.
on mute. I will definitely have every game on mute.
I'm going to the Bronx.
Right, it's gonna be worse than Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning.
That train ride's gonna be hectic. If the Yankees make the World Series, because I went on a Saturday once. That
Yeah.
train, that the D train to the Bronx, yo, it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life. Just people are just packed in, and it was this little boy, probably 7 or 8. He's like right in my stomach, just looking at me, just like I'm by the door. I can't move. Nobody can move. It's a whole bunch of people wearing Yankee gear. I'm just like, listen, dog, I don't want to be in this predicament either.
Yeah.
But you just on it, and then every stop is more people going to the game because it was like 6:30. So like the game starts at 7, so it just was like more people just getting packed into the D train. I'm just like, this is awful.
All right. So my division winners. I guess I'll start with the National League since you started with the National League. Braves, Reds, Dodgers. So we matched there.
Yeah.
Wild card, Phillies, Giants, and Diamondbacks. Like you said, the Padres always fall short. I like the Blake Snell pickup by the Giants. He went 14-9 last year. Doesn't sound that great, but he did have a 2.25 ERA. The Braves have the best pitching in the league. So, I'm picking them to win the NL. I know I did that last year too. Last year I picked the Braves and Astros in the World Series, and they both, broke my heart in different ways. And holy shit, at this shot by Cincinnati, we got 6.9 left. Indiana State trying to join Georgia in the NIT Final Four. I'm a sicko, but anyway, in the American League, I got Baltimore, Minnesota, and Seattle. Orioles coming off the 101 wins, went out and got Colin Burns to solidify their pitching staff to go along with their rookie of the year, Gunnar Anderson, with his 28 home runs, 82 RBI. I think that the Orioles are just on a mission. I think they are good enough with the Garrett Cole injury to start the season that the Yankees are going to start in a hole.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Yankees make the playoffs as a wild card, along with Houston and the Blue Jays. So yes, at home, I do not have the Rangers in the playoffs. There has not been a repeat champion since the Yankees went three-peat 98 to 2000. So, they're up against that, of course. They got some injuries going on. Jung
But
is
you
out.
gotta keep in mind, back in the day, like those playoff parameters were very.
Yeah, it was very restricted.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
14 made the playoffs. It seemed like you two. Go.
But yeah, Jung is out for a few weeks right now. Jake DeGrom isn't scheduled to come back to at least August. So I think that's going to be a rough start for the Rangers where, like the Yankees, they're going to start out in a hole. So it's not that I don't think that the Yankees are good enough to win the division. It's not that I think that the Rangers aren't good enough to make the playoffs. I just think they're going to be climbing up from behind. So it's going to be a tough battle. The Tigers are my surprise team. I don't have them making the playoffs, but I think they're a year early. So I understand where Mr. Logical's coming from, but I just think next year is going to probably be their year. Seattle, last year, they went 9-4 against the Astros, which is a good sign, but they went 4-9 against the Rangers. So if they can tighten that up, at least get closer to even in those matchups, I think that spells the division title that I picked them to win. When it comes to baseball, I've learned that the central divisions are the South divisions of the NFL. So the AL Central and the NL Central are the AFC and NFC South. They're the mediocre conferences where the team with the best record has to get in the playoffs, but you'll be lucky to get anything other than that.
Yeah.
In
We were
the
big on the Pirates early last year. We were talking about them, and then as soon as we mentioned it a couple of times, it was like, oh.
No, that was a joke. We didn't really believe in that.
I just like I said with baseball,
it was just
sometimes,
fun.
man, like the movie Major League. Sometimes just something happens in the clubhouse, something superstitious, whatever, and it just galvanizes a team, and they just go on these runs. It just unfortunate, like you said, a lot of those teams are the South versions of
Right.
in that MLB. So
Yeah, and then the Pirates are still going to finish in last place. The Royals are still going to finish in last place. The A's are still going to finish in last place. The
Angels
Rockies
are
are
going to
still
lose
going to
100
finish in
games.
last place. The Mets might finish fourth.
It's gonna be probably like three teams that potentially could lose 100 games or damn near 100.
Yeah.
The Rockies, the Angels. I don't know what Mike Trout is going to do with his life.
And I think that this year we talked about the Miami Heat in our pre-meeting about how the media is doing the whole you don't want to play Miami, but Miami's not the same team this year. That's how I feel about the Rays right now, because every year the Rays are always the team that they have their stuff together. They shock you when you don't expect anything from them. They just creep up on you. Not this year. I don't think it's going to happen this year. So in my World Series, all right, I'm going to go Braves over Seattle. Against my better judgment, I wanted to pick Baltimore, but I didn't want to be a homer. By the way, Baltimore, keep your heads up. Tragic incident this morning. But I didn't want to do the homer thing and pick them just because they're my team, even though I do think they have a legit chance to win the World Series.
But there's nothing wrong with picking your team when your team has a legit chance. Unlike me, when I picked the Falcons to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, it was a complete homer pick, and I'm good with that. I acknowledge that now. So, like I said, my World Series pick is strictly based off of I just want to see it happen. I think it's not a situation where they're not either team is built for the World Series. And when you have a guy injured, like Garrett Cole starting injured, maybe you get another guy in rotation that can surprise you.
Well, speaking of P. Diddy, I just don't know if Ohtani's going to be sitting beside him soon.
Yo, I've heard a couple different stories, and we'll get to that in our game.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. But yeah, like I said, I like the Giants with Snell. The Yankees haven't won the World Series since 2009. The Twins,
A-Rod.
Yeah, the Twins. Shout out to the Twins. They ended a 21-year series drought last year. They won their first series in 21 years last year. So maybe that unlocks something. Maybe that they can build some momentum off of that. The Guardians have the pitching, but their hitting lineup is a mess. I think Toronto's pitching is undervalued. I think Seattle's pitching is undervalued. And ladies and gentlemen, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in the NIT Final Four. How about
that? Is the greatest nickname of 2024.
All right. So to finish this off, I made a video a couple of weeks ago about how I thought the NFL was not rigged. Some people got mad at me. Some people tried to educate me and send me these videos of Doug Baldwin throwing up thumbs up signs and everything. So he
and ducking.
Yeah, while he scores a touchdown. And so maybe Mr. Logical was just sitting around. Mr. Logical thought to himself, like, I don't believe sports is rigged, but what could happen? What has to happen for me to finally take that leap and say that it is?
What report, because if you can see here in the background, I put on Netflix documentaries because we got banned last week because I had the tournament on. We were talking about it, so we got shadow banned.
Shout out to Viacom protecting your investment.
Shout out to Viacom. I mean, you're a billionaire, and there's a couple of retired guys talking about basketball, so you want to shut us down. I get it. But this is the bad sport documentary. So just the first episode was about point shaving at Arizona State. And we also have the documentary with Tim Donaghy on Netflix as well. So I called him up and was like, what report would you need to hear for you to be like, it's a real problem? And not like anything crazy, like, like just like what report, like who would you have to hear from to say, you know what, I believe that these guys are playing with loaded dice. For me, I would need like a substantial like meeting or like investigative reporting that says a handful of referees, and we'll use NBA for example, because I think the referees really impact the NBA more, probably even more than NFL. Because you could say I'm letting them play as a ref in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You got four or five referees, and they are either found to have way too many assets that they should have, or their connections to someone is very clear. It's like, hey, this guy is a bookie out of, Queens. He has, every time these guys ref games in the Eastern time zone, or anytime they're in New York, they're at the exclusive restaurants eating, like I need like a real buildup. I don't want like these people putting these clips together. Like I need like real investigative reporting, because I'm an evidence-based guy. Like I said, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, master's in public administration. So it's like,
that was Dame. That was Dame.
Yeah. So like I need evidentiary stuff to follow. I can't just go off your feelings. So I need like real reporting that says this ring of referees, and then you can go back and look at the information. It's like, every game that they ref in Brooklyn or New York or in Philly, anywhere close to this area, they seem to call this many fouls on this other opponent, and whatever the case may be. I need something like that. Shohei Ohtani or whatever. The story that I heard was that his interpreter got into debt and he loaned them money to get out of it. Seems reasonable, especially considering why would he be gambling just $4 million when he just signed like a $700 million contract? So it's like, even the thrill of it would be $4 million at a time when you have that kind of money.
Side note, how about no LeBron and the Lakers beat the Bucks?
It's rigged.
Anthony Davis, 34, 23, and 4 blocks. Giannis, 29, 21, and 11 assists.
But if I would put it on TV, I'd be flagged.
This is true.
That sounds like a great game. I'm going to check those highlights out when we get out of here.
So yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think that for me, at least just only speaking for myself, I think we're at a point where I never trusted the NBA to begin with. Like, I don't think it's rigged, but if you had to point to a league that you think is rigged, I would choose the NBA. Everybody talks about the superstar calls. And, so you can't tell me that something like that exists, but everything's on the complete up and up. But now, you have Michael Porter's little brother getting caught up in some Prize Picks type fuckery.
So was someone betting the over on him or the under on him, and he was just like play like?
So there were two games. There were two games that since January. There's two games that he started and only played, or he played, I should say, not started. he played and only played like 3 minutes or something like that. And on those nights, there were significant bets, on his under. Like, like people were betting like 20 grand that he was going to hit the under on his 3-pointers and his rebounds. And it's like, hold up. He don't even play enough in the first place to be betting on, first of all. You know what I
How many
mean?
minutes do you have to play to be a viable bet, though?
That's a good question that I can't answer.
I think I heard of something where it's like this guy was telling me he had a parlay. Was I watching the podcast? I think I was watching a podcast. He had a parlay, and someone he bet on his parlay was a game time scratch, and I think everything else hit, but they didn't pay him out because that guy didn't
All
play.
we know was probably Embiid.
I think it was somebody in my office was telling me that because it was like a late scratch. So they didn't pay out his parlay.
So I do believe that TV stations in leagues do have matchups that they prefer. Like we were talking the other day when we were on the phone, I brought up the fact that I'm sure Fox doesn't want Iowa in the Big Ten championship game every year. So I'm sure every time Iowa wins the Big Ten West, the Fox execs go, "What the hell?" But Iowa still wins the West. So you know what I mean?
As long as Michigan or Ohio State
is the opponent,
you can beat them in a championship game. But if it's Indiana, they're like,
yeah. So I do think that that's a thing. I do think the NBA groaned when we got Milwaukee versus Phoenix, even though you had Chris Paul, you had Giannis. It wasn't LeBron or Steph. So like I do think that there's preferred matchups or at least preferred players or teams that
Nike had a commercial. They had a commercial about it with these two with the puppets.
Yeah.
They wanted Cleveland and Los Angeles. They wanted LeBron and Kobe.
But it still didn't happen. So that's where, like, for me, that series, if it would have happened, it just prints money. So like if you were
those tickets are sky high. Yankees, Dodgers World Series. I'm not going to New York City. I was joking. I'm not anywhere near the Bronx. Nowhere near the Bronx if that happens.
I did think that the NFL may have had some tomfoolery when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl and when the Saints won after Katrina, just because those were such big narratives going around the media. I did think
they lost that first year.
No, they did. But I did think that, like, okay, what's going on here? But it wasn't anything that was sustained. Like, I don't think you rig something once and then you're like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, no more rigging. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that's going to be continuous until you get busted. So when I think about it, I wrote down a few things that would catch my attention, maybe. So let's see here. And
like the Tim Dynasty thing, like I brought up before, the fact that they didn't investigate any other referees is odd to me.
So two things that I thought of initially, and one of them is me being a homer. And shout out to Otis. He posted the memory today of Luke May hitting the shot against Kentucky in the Elite Eight. But that game is one of the games that could be on my rigged list, because Kentucky fans nationwide shudder every time John Higgins is the referee for one of the games. Every single time he referees a game, Kentucky fans say, we're going home tonight, or, how's he going to do it this time? For the fact that I know that Chris Paul is 3-17 in playoff games that Scott Foster referees, you just wonder. You just wonder, like, because the NBA, like basketball is, or I guess sports in general, are at their best when they're storyline driven, and they have narratives associated with them. So Chris Paul versus Scott Foster makes me mad, or when Scott Foster threw Tim Duncan out the game for laughing. You know, like
that was Joey Crawford.
no, that was Crawford. That was Crawford. Yeah, but when that
How
happened,
about Eric Lewis, the fan, like his whole family is Celtics fans,
yeah, yeah,
and he had a burner account.
yeah.
They don't talk about it.
You don't talk about
So
that. Yeah. So
the
I think
NBA, because it's I think the money in the NBA, because there's so many bets over the unders,
I
so
think
many
these
different
people
players. Yeah.
are, but I think these are more rogue individuals that are acting on their own accord versus David Silver or Adam Silver calling down and saying we need this to happen, or Goodell saying that I want Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like I don't think it's that simple. But one thing that is happening, because back to Jonte Porter and Shohei, one thing that is happening though is that these leagues are very openly partnering with these gambling agencies now.
Yeah.
Because before there was talk about how there wasn't going to be an NBA team in Vegas because of gambling and all this and all that. But
Yeah, I
now you
remember
don't
like
even
it was
need
like they didn't want a professional team in Vegas
right,
because of the gambling. Like we have a
right,
college there.
right. But you
Like
didn't. But you didn't want that there. But now you don't have to be in Vegas to bet. You can bet
yeah.
from anywhere. So and we've seen NFL players, Jameson Williams, Calvin Ridley. We've seen Isaiah Rodgers. We've seen NFL players get caught up in these FanDuel things now.
It
But
was
again,
it was like plus 1,000 for Ridley to sign with the Titans. And someone was like, mystery better bets $10 million on Ridley to the Titans.
right, right.
Yeah.
So I think it's nefarious individuals that have agendas that do things. I don't think it's the actual league that is making calls to set these things up.
But that's the thing. When people say it's rigged and their argument is that, like, their argument is that the league wants this, is like, I think it's too much going on in a league with, like we talked about,
Was Jordan's
like
three peats rigged?
like Drew Holiday run into a screen, now his arm, you can't lift his arm. Like things like that happen. Like Giannis, straining Achilles or whatever, and he can't play for a few days. Or someone just flat out getting hurt and they can't play. It's like the NBA wanting the Lakers in the finals, but if LeBron misses substantial time in the playoffs and AD is only playing at 70%, how are they really going to be able to manufacture a situation where they beat Denver with no LeBron and a hampered AD?
Right.
It's like the shot still got to go in. Like you can't call 60 fouls on Denver and keep it cool.
If the NBA could get Lakers Celtics or Lakers Knicks every year, they would be happy fat cats.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
I even think at this point they would take Knicks Clippers just to get the LA market.
Right.
Just for it to be LA.
But like usually if the fans make me mad because they act like they getting money off of this. So like, I don't want to watch Phoenix, Milwaukee, or like back when it was New Jersey against the Lakers, it was like who wants to, or Jersey against the Spurs, it was like who wants Jersey in the finals, and it's like
they earned it.
They earned it. They got there. They won. They did what was necessary to get there. Why not? If you're a basketball fan, you'll watch. Yeah. And so like, I just don't. For me to believe that sports was rigged,
it would have to be the referees. Because I'm gonna look up the average salary of an NBA ref real quick.
I think that if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl next year and become the first team to three-peat, I think people are going to run with the rig talk, because it's something that Tom Brady never did. Trying to set up Mahomes, like the GOAT conversation with Brady and Mahomes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I don't think the league cares that much about an individual player. Like, I had this conversation with people this week. Is like, I know the government cares about people, so I don't think they care so much about people that they're spying on you? Like, what are you like? What makes you so important that the government has to curtail their daily operations to focus on you? I don't know if you're that high on their scale. So I don't think the NFL cares if Patrick Mahomes is more successful. I think they care that there's not players in the league that's making the league look bad. So I think they will black. I think they probably are focused more on a guy like Antonio Brown and making sure he doesn't come back in the league
Right.
versus who's in the league. Because I don't think they don't need the players to prop them up because on their own, the Shield will do all of the heavy lifting of the publicity and everything else. What they don't want is someone bringing it down and they have to
Right.
answer for it because it doesn't really impact their money. It just impacts the Goodell clean cut owner's image. So I firmly believe that a guy like if Le'Veon Bell said he was blackballed, or if Antonio Brown said he was blackballed, or if Ryan Leaf says something like, "Hey, they didn't want me anywhere near any NFL teams after I did my time in prison because he had like a couple like drug convictions or something like that." If he
Right.
says that, I would believe that, but they do that deliberately. So when guys come out and say it, I'm like, that's not a rigging. Like they'd rather suppress you versus trying to calculate and motivate some kind of experiment that's going to be rigged. The thing that I'm looking at here with this NBA, these refs only make 250 to 550,000 a year. And I know that I say only like that's not a low sum,
Well,
but
Jonte Porter only makes 415,000.
yeah, but his brother has $100 million contract.
Yeah.
So holla at me, bro. Like
Yeah.
baby brother over here. Like I think he's squared away. But so if I'm refing, so it's like $600 per game, uh roughly $250,000 a year for entry level refs, $3,500 per game for a seasoned professional ref.
All right. Let me ask you something real quick.
If I'm doing illegal stuff, I'm running a legal ring, and I need you to call multiple fouls on Julius Randle, get him out of the game so he hits his under, and I'm paying you 10 G's just for that night, then you're making 3 times your salary in one game, and it's only 10,000.
So
So
let
if
me
I'm getting real money, you can't entice me with 10,000. If I'm only getting 600 or 600 between 600 3,500 a game, and you got a guy that's like, listen, I'm gonna give you 15,000 to call 4 fouls on Julius Randle throughout the game. I'm quadrupling 10 times over my game salary, my game check, and I'm getting underneath the table, and I'm getting this fly restaurant seat. That's the part. So if you don't have these professional refs at a pay rate that doesn't entice them, because like you said, old boy making $400,000. If his brother didn't have $100 million contract, I wouldn't slap him. But like if you don't have a brother that's making that kind of money, and you know you getting, they told you at practice you getting 15 minutes, you're like, yo, I might get 8 shots today, but if they put me on, I'm not gonna make them. I'm gonna take bad shots, but I'm getting my 15 minutes. Go ahead, bet 1,000 on my under or whatever.
see for me, I think it's just hard for me because I think of the things that haven't happened. Like, why has Duke and North Carolina not played in a national title game? Things like that. Like that's where, like, for me, like, there's obvious things that
So you're saying
should.
it has to be rigged to give me the story.
Right.
Give
So
the,
so what I
the
was
league gives you the story. Yeah.
what I was going to ask you was, are there any moments that you could think of? Because obviously there was the Lakers Kings thing back in the day in 2002, but are there any moments that you feel like you truly sat back and was like, could it be rigged? Like, is there anything that stands out in your memory that just seems like this is not on the up and up? I got one. I just got one.
I
And you heard me talk about it before.
I don't recall watching the game thinking. I rewatched the highlights of this past Super Bowl, and I did see at least 3 holding calls on Kansas City that didn't get called. But San Francisco has a darling head coach who's a son of a coach who also won a Super Bowl. So like either story works. So
Right.
I don't think
And I'm sure if we searched for it, we could find San Francisco with some holes
same
too.
thing, but
Right.
their drives are so short because like their impactful drives are short because of the Kansas City's defense. I can't really recall.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say. You already know what I'm gonna say because we've had this conversation before.
Which one is that when Chris Slater stepped on old boy's chest and they get kicked out of the game?
Nope. No, I think that was just one of those referees don't want to decide the game more than it was like something actual. Like you can't kick out Christian Leitner with 5 seconds left in a game. You know what I mean? Like I think that was more when I was younger. I might have said that, but now I'm like, nah. That no. For me, it was the 3-1 comeback.
The Cavs Golden State.
That was the one because you know how I feel about why didn't y'all discipline Draymond for the Steven Adams stuff? You know what I mean? It had to be when it was a culmination versus nipping it in the bud. Because like I would rather you kick a dude out in a either a second round or conference final series versus like game 4 or 5 of the NBA finals.
Yeah, I give you that, but in the same sense, it wasn't as if we didn't have a litany of HD evidence of his behavior.
No, definitely, but I'm just saying.
Also, what
but he
Draymond
didn't get
does,
disciplined until he went up against the cash cow.
but even with that, he is a tyrant to referees.
He is
all season long, like all season long. And Nick Wright has a theory that he was like, sometimes when Draymond's in that mood, he'll get a silly tech early in an important game. Golden State, Boston, Golden State, Sacramento, Golden State, LA, Golden State, Miami, like a big game that's nationally televised. He'll get a tech early, and then he knows the referees won't give him that second one because it's prime NBA Sunday, a prime time game or Christmas game or whatever. And then he just berates them the whole game. And he does it all the time.
I truly believe, and obviously I have no evidence, but I truly believe that if that was Iman Shumpert and not LeBron James, or if that was Channing Frye or Richard Jefferson and not LeBron James, I don't know if he gets suspended. You know, and then I told you.
Did he get a tech on the play? Like, because I can't remember if he finished the game and then they got suspended afterwards.
I believe he did get a tech. And there was talk in the media about whether he would get suspended, but I don't think anybody actually thought that the league was going to suspend him because it was the finals. You know what I mean? I don't think so. I think there was a lot of pushback of
your lack of evidence, but your compelling vocalization of what you think it's making me think.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have the evidence, but
like honestly, I think in the same sense, he is probably insufferable.
I'm sure he is, but this
was also, like, you know what?
But this is the thing. It wasn't just that game, though. It wasn't just that game, though. So he got suspended. So obviously the Cavs won game 5. So now he's back for 2 more games. So now Golden State, no more excuses. He's back. Go win the series. But then game 6, that was the game where Steph threw
his mouthpiece.
He cut, and part of that was Cleveland shot, I think it was 20 free throws in the first quarter. You know, and like people were like, well, they were just aggressive and going to the basket. And I'm like, they're aggressive going to the basket all the time. They ain't shooting no damn 20 free throws in the first quarter. Because I do believe that the NBA plays, how can I word this? There's a momentum to the games. So like you see games, because we've seen LeBron foul out of a playoff game before. You know what I mean? There's games where Phil Jackson or somebody would get into the media and say, oh, they've been fouling Shaq or Kobe and getting away with it for the last 2 games. And then the very next game, that team that they're playing, their star player will pick up 2 fouls, or whoever's guarding Shaq or whatever would pick up 2 early fouls, sit out for the first quarter, and now you set the tone of a game. You didn't rig it, but you manipulated it and set a tone. Yeah. So I think that's what they did in game 6. I think that they set the tone of Golden State, y'all not winning this game. And when I go back and watch it, because I've watched this game a few times because we've talked about this a few times. Like every time, so Cleveland was up by like 20 very, very, very early in
Yeah.
that.
I'm listening. I'm getting the free throw stats.
There
real
were
quick.
times where Golden State would get it back to single digits. Maybe they would get it to 8, and then fouls would happen. Like it was like almost instantaneous of Golden State just hit a shot, here comes a whistle. And there was a game in 2010 that I remember, NCAA tournament, Duke against Baylor. I don't know if it was the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, but Duke won the national title that year. And it was like the same type thing where Duke had control of the game. So you can't say the refs helped Duke because Duke had control. But it was just that whenever Baylor made a run and cut it down to like 5, there would be a charge out of nowhere. Like, that's not a charge. Or all of a sudden, all these tic-tac things happen. And then before you blink, Duke's back up 11 again. And then you just keep going back and forth between cutting it to 7, now it's 11. Cutting it to 7, now it's 11.
Yeah, but okay, if we look at not this series, Cleveland shot 20 free throws in game 1. They still lost by 15. They went like 18 for 20. Kyrie shot 12. He went 11 for 12. The Golden State Warriors, a 3-point shooting team, they only shot 10 free throws.
Right.
Game 2, they shot 10 as well. Golden State shot 10 free throws.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland shot 24. They still lost like 110
to
77. It was a blowout.
Yeah.
And then when they went to Cleveland, Golden State shot 26 free throws in the game 3 that they lost, and Cavaliers shot 17. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like the free throws were. Cleveland was shooting more free throws for the most part.
No, they were, and then Golden State went up 3-1, and then that's when Draymond got suspended
in game 5. Game 5,
and then game 6 was the game that Cleveland just shot. I think they broke a record for free throws in the first quarter in the finals, or it was something like that. Like it was they shot like 19 or 20 free throws in the first quarter, jumped out to an early lead, got up 20 at some point.
So in game 6?
Yeah, Golden State came back a few times, got it within single digits. Because that was, like I said, that was the game Steph threw the mouthpiece. And, if I remember correctly, that was the game where the meme where LeBron was screaming on Steph. Like when he blocked his shot. Yeah, it was that game. I think that was all the same game.
I think that game just was reffed a little tighter because Golden State shot 29 free throws that game,
but it's not always about the number of free throws. It's when
Cleveland shot 32. But just keep in mind, a 3-point shooting team shooting 29 free throws. I think it was a lot of whistles.
But what was Cleveland doing that they don't normally do that got them 20 free throws in a quarter versus over the course of a game? So, like, yes, Cleveland is going to shoot more free throws than Golden State. That's just how it works. Miami was probably going to shoot more free throws than the Mavericks when they played them. You know what I mean? That's just how it works. But what was Cleveland doing that was so different that got them 20 free throws in one quarter? And then, like I said, the numbers bear out, but the free throws, like the whistles were happening when Golden State would make their run. You know what I mean? And then Golden State, and then I think game 7, they just kicked their feet up and said, let them play.
Yeah, they went 10 for 13. Cleveland went 21 for 25. LeBron shot 10. Shumpert hit all 3 of his. Kyrie hit all 4 of his.
And see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's just odd to me that, especially in a league where we talk about superstar calls and we talk about momentum, coaches. Coach K was good at this, like berating the refs, and then all of a sudden Duke is on the free throw line every time you blink. So
NFL coaches do that too in the press conference.
Yep, and that's what I'm saying. But Game 7, I think they were just like, we're here, roll the ball out, let them play. And you remember the score of that game was like 93-89 or something like that.
Very grabby.
Yeah,
very
so
grabby
it was
game.
like, let them play. This is Game 7. So I don't think it was rigged in the sense of we got to help Cleveland win this series.
But if there was a series that you saw where someone introduced ulterior motivations, that's the one you remember?
Yeah, because I mean, they were up 3-1, and I think, like I said, more than likely they were going to win Game 5 just because Draymond was out. There was going to be a high probability that Cleveland was going to win that game. You know what I mean? Now he's back for Game 6. He's a little neutered, maybe, like attitude-wise. He's going to not jump the gun like
be on his best behavior.
Yeah, and you know what I mean? And now, but Cleveland is still getting rewarded with fouls, timely fouls. And so I don't think it was like, hey, we want LeBron to come back from 3-1, be the first person to do it. So now his legacy, I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it was the NBA, like, we got to milk this series as best we can. Like, we're building a rivalry here, Cleveland, because they played, 4 straight years?
Wouldn't you think in that same regard, they would want the 73-9 team to win outright?
Not
win
necessarily.
in a gentleman's sweep?
Not necessarily, because you also have...
Because that establishes your dynasty, that establishes your villain.
But you don't need that per se. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like you had Lakers Celtics in the 80s.
It's out west where because we know how the East Coast is. We're not watching too many games after 10 o'clock. Most people got to wake up for work at 6 o'clock.
You had Lakers.
You established a West Coast villain like them with back-to-back championships over LeBron, who's people, he was highly regarded as he was in the GOAT conversation even back then, even when he only had one chip at that point, correct?
No, I think you want...
He had two at that point.
I think in that scenario, I think you want the rivalry because, like, what branded the NBA? It was Magic versus Bird. So when Jordan came up, or like, okay, Magic Bird, Isaiah came in. So then you had like Isaiah Magic for a little bit. Jordan came up. Jordan didn't have a rival. Like, besides Utah, they beat all different teams in their championships. He missed the 2 years. The Rockets beat 2 different teams.
Yeah, but he had the Detroit rivalry
right
before the championship run.
Right. And then you had the Rockets beat 2 different teams, in their championships. Then the Bulls came back, beat Seattle, then beat Utah back-to-back.
Back-to-back.
You had the lockout season, or the strike or whatever it was, the shortened season. Spurs won that title. Then you went Lakers 3-peat, but against different teams. Then the Spurs started alternating. But there were dynasties, but there was no real rival. Like, it wasn't Magic versus Bird. So Steph and LeBron was the first time that we had Magic versus Bird again, from the standpoint of not necessarily these 2 teams, but these players are playing against one another in the finals. And then, of course, Durant went to Golden State after that. So, like, you had to have something. Like, you couldn't have LeBron lose 4 straight finals. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. And I'm not saying that the league set that up. I'm just saying, like, when I think about it, it just kind of makes sense, from that standpoint. And Game 7 was just let them play. Steph made the bonehead pass, and I thought the game was lost.
Behind the back pass, yeah.
Once he did that, that's when I thought Golden State lost the game. I thought that was the moment. And then, of course, LeBron had the block later. So that was, but that's the only time. So I'm not trying to say it's like it's a constant thing. Like, that was the one time where it entered my mind. Like, I still don't necessarily believe it was rigged, but that was the one time where I was like, that seems a little odd. That was a little odd. But in the NFL, I don't really have those moments. Like I don't really have like there was one Super Bowl that I remember, which was or two Super Bowls that involved the same team. So there was the Neil O'Donnell Super Bowl.
When he threw it straight
So
to
Larry Sanders, yep.
Larry.
You know, there was that one. And then
That's
there
too
was,
obvious, though. I think that just was a mediocre quarterback with a great defense that just ended up in the Super Bowl.
and then there was
Fred Dupper
one,
probably would have done it too.
and then there was one when I was deployed. They played Seattle in the Super Bowl. Hasselbeck, Jackson, Willie Parker ran the long touchdown. Ben didn't score on that touchdown.
Yeah, he was definitely short.
You know, they called Daryl Jackson for that pass interference that Michael Irvin does
Oh.
every time he touches the ball.
His arm was extended.
It was, but so do Michael Irvin, so do DeAndre Hopkins.
You got to lean backwards and hit. Michael Irvin will hit you with the elbow.
You
He
know,
hit you with that.
but that Super Bowl, I was like, I don't know. There's like some fishy stuff going on, but I still wouldn't go to rigged. But it was just like that's very fishy. I know a lot of people think the NFL want the Chiefs, but there's nothing that really stands out during the Chiefs run that I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that.
If Rome Odunze slips to the Chiefs, or somebody trades, it's something like that happens where it's like you get like a certain player.
I still
would like the whole like Patrick Ewing to the Knicks.
Yeah, I did think that was a thing.
That's been regarded as like that was pretty.
Well, think about it. Now that you bring it up, think about
Williamson should have gone to the Knicks if that's the case.
But think about it though. LeBron leaves Cleveland. They get the number 1 draft pick twice. Back to back, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. They got 2 and 4. The 2 in the middle, I think.
And then the Hornets or the Pelicans, whatever they were at the time when they were still in New Orleans, owned by the league, ends up with the number 1 draft pick. So like there are like moments that make you think. I think they just don't happen enough to where.
Yeah, but like if I'm gonna rig, Zion's in New York. The New Orleans doesn't get that number 1 overall pick that year because the Knicks were ready. These guys were already had their personalized jerseys with number 1 on it. They just knew. And when it said New Orleans, I was like, yeah, I thought the NBA was rigged. And when that didn't happen, I was like, yeah, it probably isn't.
But it still could be. But it still could be because we always argue about the small markets and everything. So how better
they needed a superstar in a small market.
How better to get a small market to? I mean, John Morant went to Memphis at 2. You know what I mean? Like these things, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like so like this year, you can't really do it because outside of Wemby, I don't know if there was anybody that like as good as people think Scoot Henderson was.
Wemby going to San Antonio is the same thing. Okay, go sit down.
Yeah, it is because the first thing they said was Tim Duncan and all this kind of stuff. Like San Antonio just seems to look like that. Like they got David Robinson, they got Tim Duncan, now they got Wemby. It seems to be like a lineage thing, if you will. Yeah. But I still don't think because like there's enough dumb teams like Michael Jordan taking people over Giannis, like taking Cody Zeller over Giannis, like to where you're like, why wouldn't they want Michael Jordan to have the team that's owned by Michael Jordan? Why wouldn't they want that team to be successful?
To be good, yeah.
Yeah, not that they got to win the title, not that they even got to be a contender.
Like another scout telling him, yeah, don't take that guy.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? The league stepping in and saying, like, hey, don't take Michael Kidd-Gilchrist or like, you know what I mean? Like,
and shoot.
Let's manipulate this so you can get John Wall, or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's enough that doesn't happen. Like, for even those little moments that I think I see, it doesn't happen enough for me to buy in and say, this is being done. Like, there might be a moment or two where things are sketchy, but it's like when people talk about flat earth, like you know how many people would have to be in on that to pull that off?
How much effort and concealing you'd have to, especially because some of the stuff there is like it's an ice wall with guns.
Yeah.
Like, who's manning an ice wall with guns? What is this, Game of
especially
Thrones?
especially
Like,
with
cut it out.
especially with all this global warming talk. You
Like
know, saying like
they have nuclear weapons on the other side of the wall, and they're doing like if
yeah,
you thought the Earth was flat, then that's fine. Like, okay, but like when you add in this video game level conspiracy nonsense, it's like, okay, you lose your salt.
I do
But
love the whole Australia's not real. I do like that
that's not a
one.
real place.
Yeah, like I swear
Really?
on my last deployment, I was the exec for the commander. So, you know, I was doing like processing the metals and all that kind of stuff through AFSEN and whatnot. So one day there's this hip hop website that I like to read. And during my shift, I literally sat there and went through 82 pages of flat earth discussion, like just reading. It was so entertaining. Like, I don't believe that the earth
Yeah,
is flat, but it
no.
was so entertaining listening to all the theories and debates.
When we were deployed to Kunsan, I went through hours of Illuminati video footage on YouTube. I was sucked
Yeah.
in the ridiculousness of it, but like hours every day for like a month. I
Yeah.
watched this at work, and I was on mids. It's like midnight. My light was off in my office. I just watched these videos. But once again, it's like you have a simple outlook on it. It's like, okay, this could be rigged because of this. I think an NBA game could be fixed because if I'm running, like a bookie thing, I
A
could just
game
I
could
could
be fixed. I don't know if a season could be fixed.
not a season. Yeah, I think like you can manipulate it outcomes, especially with this gambling and the betting and everything else, by just telling the ref, "I'll give you 20 grand."
And we just talked about how since All-Star break, scoring is down, you know, free throws are down. So
And
they
Adam
obviously
Silver
can.
mad because the All Star game
Yeah,
had
so they
20
obviously
points.
can manipulate the game. You know what I mean? But
We had a game the other night. It was like 150, 145.
but the cream still rises to the top. Like you're not going to manipulate it to the point where the Wizards are just going to start beating the Celtics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you can get that conventional with it, but I don't know. We'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Logical. I am 2-5. We are Sports Reports as Ordered. The biggest movement since Dipset.
Tell
You
your
know,
grandma
so
about it.
good night, Grandma. Like, review, subscribe. We'll be back later this week. You know, we'll get you some more hot fire.
Dylon.
But in the meantime, y'all be good out there. Stay safe. Pray for my peoples in Baltimore. And, you know, be blessed. We love you. Peace.